I generally couldn't come up with an intro today, so I just didn't. And I generally wanted to read way more than I did, and I just didn't in April. I am also editing, as you see the unboxings for April. Has been very rough. I mentioned it in that video as well. I'm going through some bereavement. On top of everything, I really didn't have time to stop and take everything in because of school and work and just life. So I am doing my best, trying to edit when I can, but I've got very little free time these days. So the unboxing for April is a bit delayed of a couple of days. I apologize for that, and I'm gonna try and put up these wrap up just because it's so short. It won't take long to film and edit and put up. So yeah, April, it's been a month where I had big plans of reading during the holidays, and I also knew better though, knew that it was going to be a bit difficult. So I did finish 2 books in the month of April, only 2, and those were finished before I left for Italy, which was, I left on the 4th of April, so I literally finished those in the first couple of days of the month. And to be fair, the only reason why I managed to finish those in the first couple of days of April is because I had started both in March. Now that I've sung enough praises for my reading, I must say that I am in the middle of 8 books, and I just didn't get around to read much during the holidays. It was clearly, calling it holiday, it feels wrong. It wasn't really a holiday, it was me going home to say goodbye to my favorite person in the whole world, and you can only imagine how hard that is to do. So what I found myself in, although I did have free times, I even have some hours during the day where I was just around, not doing much, just being vigilant around my loved one. I just found myself unable to read. I just found myself maybe able to read a few chapters, but then I would have to interrupt myself to go and check on her, or would have just, some family would come around, we would start chatting, or even when none of that was happening, my mind was just in a million different places, and I just kept losing the sentences. Like I kept having to reread things over and over again. So I did read maybe 200 pages in total, 250 pages in total in 3 weeks I was away, and those 200 pages felt like reading 1,000 books because I kept reading the same sentences over and over again to try and absorb some. So in the end I just ended up doing some embroidery kit instead, because that was manual, so I could talk, I could think while doing something else. Not much reading was done, and as I came back, life resumed very hectically. Is that something you can say in English? I don't know. Forgive me if you can't. And then there was the bereavement, and then there was just me not having time to do pretty much anything apart from work and schoolwork and being in school and placement and work, and you know, my little one and so on. And so I would maybe have 1 hour of reading at night, and so I am in the middle of 8 books, but I am nowhere near the end of any of those 8 books. A long ramble to say that I am hopefully gonna find the enthusiasm for filming again. At the moment, feeling enthusiastic about anything is quite difficult, which makes sense. I'm gonna give myself some time, but I also wanna have a bit of free time because it's so little. I need to kind of take stock of how I'm feeling and what do I need in that moment. And for example, spring has come around and I do want to do some gardening. I do want to just get my hands busy, because when my hands are busy I don't think that much, so it's easier just to immerse myself in a task rather than reading a lot, because I don't even have like a couple of hours in a row of freedom to do so as of now, to be fair. But also editing, it feels like a task, which is unfortunate in this moment, because I do love editing, I do love filming videos, but because it feels so much of a task now, like I have to, it's the 1,000 thing I need to do, and therefore I kind of try to push back a bit. So that is to say, my mood changes daily, things will improve, I will go back to filming. I filmed an unboxing which I loved, so I'm gonna edit that. But yeah, frequency of videos or topics apart from my usual wrap-ups and unboxing, I don't know, let's figure out together if there are gonna be some in the months to come. But yeah, one day at a time. Let's talk about the two things I've read on a positive note, if you want. Everything I've read was amazing. I had a great start of the month, reading-wise. As always, I do like my enjoyment list from the least enjoyable read to the most enjoyable read, but I was so damn lucky this month in April to actually enjoy both things so much. So number 2, because, well, one of us had to go on number 2, I will put The Temple of Fortuna by Elodie Harper. This is the end of a trilogy by Harper, and it's a historical fiction. The story of a Greek slave that is sold into slavery, and slavery comes in the form of prostitution for her in Pompeii before the eruption of a volcano in 79 AD. And you really follow Amara trying to make something out of the poor condition she is given by life. I'm gonna keep it very vague. I've talked about this before, and also I do really, I'm more keen these days to give brief synopses, because I think synopsis can give away so much of the book. And I don't like to hear those synopses, long-winded synopses, and therefore I do not like to do that to someone else. So anyway, it's ended, it's finished. I am both sad to see these characters go, and at the same time I did find the end very satisfying. The stakes were felt, the groans of frustration and surprise were employed when needed, and by the last chapter I was finally really feeling like a fan of Amara. Amara and I didn't always see eye to eye. I found in this last book, though, that she was finally making those choices that I wished she had made throughout the whole trilogy. Yet I do wonder if the fact that she had not done it before kept the tension going, therefore the way Harper paced her character development also was the reason for making me sticking to this trilogy and wanting to read a book after the other, just to really see if Amara would finally not be so dumb at times. And I think she delivered in the end. I mean, I don't know if other people would enjoy her choices in the end as much as I did. Maybe they had a completely different take. Personally, though, I finally connected with Amara. I like Harper's style a lot of historical fiction. It's a very fast-paced historical fiction with some action, clever twists, and also full of women that are trying to carve out their own fortune. With, and that must be said, truly gruesome villains. It does lack atmosphere, and I think I was lucky, though, to be able to immerse myself to a certain extent in the environment that our characters were living in, just because I've been before to those places. The prose is vivid yet succinct. There are no long descriptions of pretty much anything. The dialogue's pretty short. It's all fast, albeit poignant. All the 3 books are very distinct. They all are their own thing and morph into something else every time you open up a new one. And at the same time, though, you have the same recurring characters. So every time I would open a new book, it felt like a new adventure, and yet feeling like I'm coming home to beloved characters. Harper has definitely gained a fan. I will definitely be on the lookout for her next release. I like her style. I think it's such a refreshing, fast-paced, and yet thoughts-provoking type of narration that you can really take out of these whether you want. For some, it's going to be just a thrilling ride through a historical fiction full of twists, while for others it might be more like, let me read between the lines. Actually, this is packed full of commentary, although not done in as much details as many other historical fictions. I think she's still conveying a few messages here and there. I would absolutely love a TV adaptation of these. If it ever happens, I'll be the first one to watch it. And I just want to leave you with this sentence that if you've read, you know what I mean, but I do too feel that this is not the end. And yeah, moving on to number 1, but honestly, truly, such a good historical fiction. And at number one we have a horror. It feels like coming home, enjoying horror so much. But at number 1, and I gave it 5 stars, we have Boys in the Valley by Philip Fracassi. Don't know how you pronounce it in English, but this is what it sounds at least an Italian surname, so I'm gonna pronounce it as it should be pronounced in Italian, fracassi. Truly, one sentence synopsis of this is, what if a devil visits a only boy orphanage? What happens then? And let me tell you, I feel like now I am a completed horror reader. I have found one of the best possession stories I have read since reading The Exorcist eons ago. It is something that really catches my attention when it comes to horror, possession. I'm not religious at all, yet I'm fascinated by the concept of a devil and heaven and hell and so on. I still find it literature-wise very interesting. So a good possession story though, it's not that easy to come by, and this was brilliant. I also have to recommend you reading these in a similar atmosphere that I created when I read these, and because I believe I would do you a disservice in not recommending these, dim the lights, put on some horror soundtrack music. You can find it on YouTube for free, which is what I did, and I just had a candle on, horror background with horror soundtrack, no singing, just soundtrack, and just I was immersed into this, and it creeped the hell, pun intended, out of me. Fracassi does what I really enjoy writer doing in any book, but especially in horror, which is creating the right atmosphere. This desolate lands with winter approaching, with nothing around if not an orphanage, some boys and the devil. And that combo just worked so well to scaring the living out of me. Fracassi not only does atmosphere well, he does also the devil justice. His devil is a complex devil. It's the devil of corruption, and there is nothing as heartbreaking as corruption of the innocents. So the brutality of the book, it's mostly, I think it's both physical and moral. It is an emotional corruption. That it's what makes it so effective. It's not just gore for the sake of gore. A lot of the times the most violent things happen by words. I also truly appreciated that his use of gore, which is that there is violence and gore, it always stops at a point where it is unbearable. Fracassi does not give you lengthy, very explicit, written on the page for paragraphs, descriptions of how a body is dismembered and blah blah blah, for example. He gets you there, he gets you to, this is happening, but you don't get to see it descripted as it happens to its full length, to, you know, until it's completed. So that telling you but then stopping and letting you imagine what happens behind closed door, I found personally more scary than having it bluntly put on page, because my imagination can probably do way worse than you can write gore on a page. So that we are here, this is happening, you can imagine the torment, the psychological torment that this kid is going through. I'm not going to show you all of it. I'm gonna show you bits and bobs, maybe I'll show you the end, but not the interim, the in-between. And that, I promise you, it's so disturbing. It makes a bold choice when it comes down to point of views, because you have one first person point of view and all the rest are in third person. At the beginning it was like, what is this? And then it kind of worked out. I ended up just ultimately feeling very distraught of having to witness this happening. I grew attached so much to the good ones, and maybe a couple of the bad ones too. I could really feel sorry for them. And David was my favorite in the story. I think David just shone through, and the way this concluded, it was just so fit to the story and so upsetting at the same time, which is like, well, that's what you're here to do. You're here to make me feel horrified, but also to make me feel hurt, in a sense. You are showing me, you know, what if this was to happen. And the way it concludes, I think it is fit to the story. It was a clever plot, clever writing, and although certain things I could see them coming, the way he then made them happen was always surprising. I don't think this is an innovative horror in what he does. It's not an odd horror. It doesn't push the boundaries of what a horror, classic horror is. I think it very much sits in the standard classic, yet amazing horror. I'm a big fan of classic horror, and I think this elevates those elements to their potential, especially when it comes down again to possession horror. I found the gem, and if you're a fan of horror, read Boys in the Valley, and then please tell me in the comments down below what you thought about it. Or if you already read it, I would love to hear your comments. I don't want to go into a long goodbye. I think I've said my piece at the beginning, and I am also melting because we have a mini heat wave in London, which I'm not complaining about. I love it. But take care, everyone. You know what to do if you want to stick around. I'll see you next time. Go well. Ciao.